David Sanchez of Havok, long time no talk, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I am doing good. Congratulations on the new album, Conformicide. It's been over 3 years since the last record, and you've had this one in the can for quite a while. It's been a bit of a journey.
Yeah, I'm stoked to finally get it out there.
Absolutely. So let's talk Conformicide. Music first. Did you approach making this album any differently from the previous records?
Not really. I think the only major difference is how many other styles of music I've been listening to, and I think it was more conscious to sneak in some more like diverse sounds and to make things a little more dynamic and more layered. I think that was the biggest difference.
I was going to mention that. It sounded like there was a lot more diversity on the album than the previous ones. And of course, this is Nick's first album with the band, and he's an incredible bassist. What did that do for you in terms of opening up the band's sound and the songwriting process and how he was able to contribute to that?
Well, it's really great that Nick can play practically anything. If you throw any bizarre idea at him, he can just play it. So that was really cool, and getting to incorporate some funky bass lines in there is great because I love funk, and he does as well. So it's fun to throw slap bass in the metal. Not a lot of bands do it. I think Suicidal Tendencies might be the only other band that does it as much as Havok does. And as far as like getting him in on songwriting, I think he added a lot of dynamics and some cool, interesting ideas that we wouldn't have thought of without him. Most of the bass lines we collaborated on. You know, he'd throw an idea out, and I would say, you know, what if we tweak this part right here? And we'd kind of play like bass line ping pong back and forth with each other, shooting ideas back, and until we were both satisfied with it. There were some bass lines that I had written before he joined up, and there are some bass lines that he completely wrote himself independently. And I'm pretty stoked. The bass lines on the record are really cool, and I'm very, very pleased with how they came out.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because a lot of times you go into the studio with songs sort of in your mind a certain way, and then they sort of take on a life of their own once you get in the studio. Did that happen with any of the tracks for you guys on this record?
A couple parts popped up in the studio last minute that turned out to be really cool. But for the most part, we knew what we were going into to lay down.
So now previously you were on sort of, I don't know what they want to call it, a sub-label or something. Now you guys are signed to Century Media. How involved did they get in the process of creating this album, or did they just leave you to do your thing?
They kind of left us to do our thing, which is really cool, because we're the ones that are in the band.
Let's talk lyrically about Conformicide then, because you have never been one to shy away from your thoughts on things. The album to me seems to be about pulling people's heads out of their collective asses and thinking for themselves before it's too late. Is that about right?
I think you just nailed it exactly on the head. That's exactly it.
Many people may feel that it might already be too late for that. What are your thoughts?
I think it could be easily argued that it is too late. It's a great debate. You know, you could spend all day talking about that. Is it too late, or can we change it? I could completely, I mean, if I had to, I could argue either side of that.
That's the fun of it all, right? The album's first single, which you guys just released, Hang 'em High, sort of takes aims at politicians and big business. But it seems to me, in many ways, we as a nation are responsible for allowing this to happen, because we stick our heads in the sand, swallow whatever the media sells us, and we've gotten too lazy to think for ourselves.
That's right. That is the truth. We're living in a more and more Orwellian society as time ticks away. Things keep getting closer and closer to the type of society they have in the book's 1984.
You sort of take aim at a lot of those things on here. Obviously, we just talked about what you're looking at on Hang 'em High in the lyric video. People can read it and hear and see it for themselves. But, you know, you take aim at the media and how they've sort of been brainwashing us, and we sort of swallow that and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think Jim Morrison was correct when he said, who controls the media controls the mind. It's the absolute truth. If you're in control of all the information that people hear, well, then you're in charge of what people are going to think.
So now when you wrote the album, as you said, the album itself was already done last spring. So when you wrote it, we had no idea Trump would become president, and I think most of us figured it would probably be a continuation of the same progressive societal cancer in the form of Clinton or somebody. Do you think
Sure.
Trump's divisiveness and brusque approach to things might actually wake Americans up and get them thinking instead of conforming?
It certainly already is doing that in some aspect. I don't know if it's necessarily the right direction, but obviously people are becoming more aware and seem to be paying a little more attention. If there's any one good thing about Trump, that would be it. He's making people kind of pay attention and say, like, what the fuck? Everything, no, this is ridiculous. How can this be happening? It's like, yeah, now you're starting to pay attention when it's this one guy that you don't like, but the whole system has been bending us over and sticking it to us for a long time. Now this one guy is instigating people to, kind of think and wake up and get the gears in their brain moving a little bit, which I think is good. But, you go down that mode of thinking just a little bit longer and you figure out that, oh, it's not Donald Trump that's the problem. It's the whole system is the problem.
Right.
And, we're brainwashed from the time we're toddlers to believe that the system is good and that justice is blind and, the American dream thrives and you can do anything you want. And this is the land of the free. And, meanwhile, we have more laws on the books than any other country in the world. Lots of innocent people are locked up in cages at this very moment. The government passes things like the National Defense Authorization Act, the Patriot Act. Like, it's all backwards. Everything is completely backwards versus the way that this country was intended to operate when it was founded in the 1700s. The rules were meant to come from the bottom up, not from the top down. And now we've seen a complete reversal of that idea. And no one seems to care. And that's why I'm very pissed off. And that's why a lot of the lyrics on this record are what they are.
Well, and it's not just the lyrics, because I can sort of hear that anger and aggression in the music, too. This almost sounds like your angriest, most aggressive album to my ear.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the music's very fitting for the lyrics. I think the lyrics just take it to like a whole nother level of spitting venom.
Yeah, and I would agree from everything that I've listened to. And obviously, I don't have the lyric sheet to be able to read all the lyrics and know them clearly, but I identify and agree with a lot of what you're saying on here, and I'm almost wondering if we've reached that point where it's time for our system of government to recycle itself, because our forefathers said when it stops working, scrap it and start over.
Yeah, I think you could argue that we've been in that position for over 100 years. The entire monetary system and the entire economy essentially got hijacked in 1913 with the passing of the Federal Reserve Act. Just barely over 100 years ago, do you know what people paid in federal income tax? In the early 1900s, the federal income tax per year, nowadays it's like, 35%, something like that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Back then, there were roads. Back then, there was an army. Back then, there was all these things that we still have. Federal income tax back then was $0, 0% of your income. I would love to see the country make a return to something like that, where you're not penalized for doing well and having a good year. I think just the major problem is not that government needs more money, it's that government wastes our money and spends it in the stupidest possible ways. I would love to see a time where the power is literally held by the people again, and we are not ruled, but we rule the government. I think Thomas Jefferson was correct. This is on the recording at the end of Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death on our last record. Thomas Jefferson was correct when he said that when the people fear the government, there is tyranny, and when the government fears the people, there's liberty. We need to make a return to a time where the government fears the people, because we outnumber them millions to one. People just need to open their eyes and recognize that, and we can make a big difference in the world.
Agreed, and I think what's happening right now in this country, especially with Trump at the head of it, may force that to happen, or it could go the other direction. We'll have to wait and see. Before we get out of here, some quick lighthearted questions. When you record an album, do you already know the song titles when you go in, or do you use, like many bands do, sort of placeholders while you're recording it?
Working titles, yeah, we use those. I think we had to use them about half of the time on this record.
What was the silliest one you used?
What was the silliest?
Yeah.
On the song Master Plan, the working title for that song was Machine Gun, because the riff, when the song's building up, the main riff sounds like a machine gun, super fast picking.
So now, and you guys recorded a cover of Pantera's Slaughtered for the bonus tracks version of the album. You've recorded some covers in the past. I think you were even talking to a fan online one day about doing a Mr. Bungle cover. But do you think Havok would ever record a full covers album?
Yeah, we would love to. We're actually talking about doing that maybe a few years from now.
All right, so last question just for fun before we get out of here. Best Mel Brooks film ever?
It's a tie between Blazing Saddles and History of the World Part 1.
Nice. I'm more of a Blazing Saddles guy, but I'm now going to have to go back and revisit History of the World Part 1.
History of the World Part 1 is amazing. There's so many funny parts in that movie.
Awesome, David. Again, thanks so much for taking the time. Congratulations on the new album. It's fantastic. Look forward to seeing you live when you're out on tour. Looks like you're going to get to spend some time with your heroes and suicidal tendencies. Have a great tour, man.
Yeah, I'm stoked. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. This was a fun one.
All right. Take care, man.